Good morning, students. Our today's topic is protein-protein interactions, in which we will take up the yeast 2 hybrid and its variant yeast 3 hybrid screening. So, before taking up this yeast 2 hybrid and yeast 3 hybrid screening methods, we will know about what are the protein-protein interactions. So protein-protein interaction is the intentional physical contact between two or more protein as a result of certain biochemical events, and these interactions are generally steered by several electrostatic forces, or by hydrogen bonding, or by hydrophobic effects. So we know that many molecular processes within the cell are carried out by the molecular machines. And what are these molecular machines? These are the numerous protein components which get organized by the protein-protein interactions. So these different proteins, they get interacted and result in carrying out the several molecular processes. Okay, so this network of different proteins is helpful in carrying out the several biochemical processes in the cell. So there are different processes like signal transduction, transport across membranes, cell metabolism, and the muscle contraction. So what is the signal transduction? So signal transduction is a process by which a chemical or physical signal is transmitted through a cell as a series of molecular events, and which result in the cellular response. Basically, signal transduction it evokes the signaling pathways, and this signal transduction is initiated by the interaction of ligand with the receptor molecule. So here we will take the example to understand this G protein coupled receptor. So G protein coupled receptors are the transmembrane proteins, and these are associated with the G proteins which are in inactive form. So when these GPCRs reacted with when these are reacted with the ligand extracellular signal, so ligands are the extracellular signaling molecules. So these may be cytokines, these may be some steroid hormones, so these may be proteins like receptor. So when there is the interaction between G protein receptors, coupled receptors, and ligands, it results in the reactivation of the receptors, and the reactivation of receptor further activate the G protein associated with them. So G protein is the heteromeric protein. When it get activated, its G alpha subunit binds to the GTP, and it get dissociated from its two other subunits, leaving them to expose their binding site for other molecules. In this way, a cascade of information starts flowing. Okay, then other is the transport across membranes. So there are several molecules which get transported from cytoplasm to nucleus, or nucleus to cytoplasm, and This is carried out with the help of important proteins, and these important proteins, these are associated with the nuclear pores. So these important, they recognize the nuclear localization sequences which are attached to the cargo entering into the nucleus. So that cargo can be a protein carrying the NLS, which is recognized by importin. Then interaction take place and that cargo enters into the nucleus. Other is the cell metabolism. So here we can take the example of the mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation chain system, or you can say electron transport chain system in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. So there is a protein cytochrome C, which is the electron carrier protein. It binds to the enzyme reductase first. It takes up the electron and gets dissociated, and then it binds to the another enzyme cytochrome C oxidases and again regain its original state. So the interaction between these proteins are dependent upon the highly specific binding or the interaction between these to carry out this electron transport chain. And the another importance of interaction is in the muscle contraction. We know that myosin, these are the motor proteins. So when these get interact with the actin proteins, help in the sliding of the filaments, which further result in the muscle contraction. So the normal protein interaction is must for carrying out the biochemical processes events in the normal manner. Any disorder in the interaction, it may lead to certain fatal disorders like the Alzheimer disease. So what are the different types of protein interactions may occur in the cells? So on the basis of composition is what type of protein subunits are coming in contact with each other and for how long these remain in contact with each other. So on the basis of the composition, the interactions may be homologomer interaction or the heteroligomer interactions. So oligomers, if we talk in biochemistry, it is the macromolecular complex which is formed by the non-covalent binding of a few macromolecules like protein or nucleic acid. So if the oligomer is having same type of protein subunit, then it is called the homo-oligomeric protein interaction. Here we can see the example. All the molecules, protein subunits, these are of same type. Similarly, heteroligomers, these are the molecular complex having multiple type protein subunits. Here you can see the hemoglobin. Okay. Similarly, on the basis of duration for which these subunits remain in contact with each other, stable interactions or the transient interactions. So in transient interaction, generally the interaction is temporary for the short period of time, after which these get separated. Okay, you can have the example of this muscle contraction, binding of myosin with the actin. Similarly, for stable interactions, the interaction lasts for the long duration. For example, the hemoglobin. Okay, so interaction can be of any kind. So what could be the effect of these protein interactions? So when the different proteins they come in contact with each other, it may result in the changing of uh, the conformation of the binding site, or the inactivation of a protein, or the specificity of the protein could be changed for its substrate, or the kinetic property of proteins could be changed. So any type of effect can occur when two protein they come in contact with each other. Okay, so why interaction is possible between different protein? It is because of the protein domains. So what are the domains? So domains are the basic structural unit within a protein molecule. Okay, a polypeptide chain can have 2, 3, 4, or one domain. So these domains are formed by the interaction of the structural elements called the motifs, and assumes the three-dimensional structural like globular proteins of globular proteins. So different domains can possess different functions. They may exist independently of other domain also. Okay, so here you can see this is one domain, it is having another domain. So due to these two domains, the proteins they may interact with each other. So these are the functional entity of a polypeptide chain. So there are different methods to identify this protein-protein interaction. It can be carried out in vivo, it be carried out in vitro. There is one another method which we will take up in our next lectures, in silico method. Okay, so the most common method which is used nowadays for protein-protein interaction is the yeast-2 hybrid system. So this hybrid system, yeast-2 hybrid system, it uses the yeast as a test tube. So this method is having the certain advantages over the conventional methods, which require very large amount of purified proteins or antibodies. Here we need only the a small part of the cDNA, which is easily available from the libraries, cDNA libraries. Okay, so now we will take up this yeast-2 hybrid system in this lecture, and its variant yeast-3 hybrid system. So yeast-2 hybrid system, also known as Y2H, and it is used to discover protein or the protein DNA interaction. And it was first used by the scientist Field and Song using the Saccharomyces cerevisiae as the biological model. So this method utilizes the transcriptional activities of a gene as the measure of protein interactions. So the methodology of this method involves the use of the bait, prey, and the reporter gene. So bait is that part of the transcriptional activator which is having DNA binding domain, and prey is that part of the protein which is having activation domain, and the reporter gene are used to identify the protein interactions. So how will we utilize this system? Next slide we will study in detail. Okay, here we see that how the normal transcription is carried out. So the normal transcription require a transcriptional activator which bind to the promoter which is present at the upstream of the gene. And this transcriptional activator, it has two domain. It is a kind of protein having the binding domain which binds to promoter, and the activation domain which generally required to carry out the RNA polymerase activities so that the transcription may start. So once both the domain are there, it results in the activation of the transcriptional activator. Absence of any one, it will halt the process of the transcription. So the scientist Field and Song, as we discussed in previous slide, they utilized the Saccharomyces cerevisiae as the biological model and the Gal4 transcriptional activator to study the transcriptional activities of the gene. Okay, because the Gal4 transcriptional activator, it utilizes the LAC-Z gene to carry out the transcription. So wherever we use Gal4 transcriptional activator, the gene associated with it will always be the LAC-Z gene. Okay. So as we have told you that these two domains, DBD and AD, these need not to be on the same protein. Okay, two fusion proteins can be created like this. This is the protein X which is having the binding domain. This is protein Y having the activation domain. So these domains need not to be present on same protein. So binding domain of one protein may interact with the activation domain of another protein. When these get interacted, this transcriptional activator get completed and the transcription activity may start. Okay. So how can we create these fusion proteins? So in these two hybrid assay, we prepare two plasmid constructs because we want to show the protein-protein interaction. Here we will produce the bait plasmid. So in this, the protein of our interest, whose sequence is known, is joined with the binding domain of the GAL4 transcriptional activator. Okay. So gene X for the known protein is recombined with the gene for the binding domain of the GAL4 transcriptional activator. And this construct also contain a selectable gene for the tryptophan synthesis. So this is called the bait plasmid. And this bait plasmid encodes a fusion protein X, protein of interest, and this is GAL4 binding domain, part of the protein. Okay, GAL4 domain BD. And the another plasmid constructed is prey plasmid. It is also known as fish. It is also known as hunter plasmid. Here another gene, Y gene, whose interaction we would like to study with the X, whether it can interact with X or not. So it can be taken, it may be known or unknown. Okay, its sequence may be known or unknown. From the library, the large number of prey plasmid can be produced, and this Y is associated with the GAL4 activation domain and carrying the leucine selectable gene, and their product will result in the formation of again the fusion protein having the Y protein and the protein having GAL4 activation domain. So these two plasmids are constructed to study the interaction between the X and Y. Here you can see the bait plasmid, okay, whose sequence is known, and for whose we would like to know its counterpart. So here different type of fish plasmid or prey plasmid are constructed. Okay, different type of genes coding for different type of protein sequences are taken and inserted with the AD, GAL4 AD domain. So after constructing these plasmids, these are then introduced into the yeast cell by transfection. Generally the yeast cells, they are mixed with the constructed plasmids, and by sonication the cell, the membrane of the yeast cell, it get disturbed to produce the transient pores. Through these pores the plasmid get enter into the yeast cells, and then after the transfection process, these transfected yeast cell, these are poured over a nutrient medium. and this nutrient medium is lacking the leucine and the tryptophan. Okay, so here we will see the pores produced. Through these pores the plasmid they enter into the yeast cell. So on the selecting medium, if the yeast cell is having no plasmid, it will die. If it is having one plasmid, then it will die. But why it will die? Because as we have discussed that there are present the selectable genes for the leucine and tryptophan. If and the medium is lacking these two amino acid, so plasmid is there in the cell carrying the leucine and the tryptophan genes, then the cell will be able to synthesize these amino acid and will survive. If it is lacking in one or both the plasmid, it will die. Only that yeast cell will survive in which both the plasmids with leucine and tryptophan are there in the cell. Okay, so this cell will survive. So whether these proteins in the surviving cell interact or not, how can we study it? Okay, for this the LAC-Z gene is inserted in the yeast DNA. Okay, immediately after the Gal4 promoter. As I have told you earlier that the Gal4 transcriptional activator, generally it transcribe the LAC-Z gene. So if in the surviving cell the two proteins they interact, here you can see if two proteins X and Y interact, it means the BD and the AD part of the Gal4 also associated. So once these get associated, this AD will now cause the transcriptional activation of the reporter gene, which is LAC-Z gene. Okay, and if these are not interacting, there will be the no transcription of the reporter gene because the Gal4 transcriptional activator is not functional now. Okay, so once the LAC-Z gene get activated, it will start utilizing the X-Gal, its substrate. So the clonase in which the transcription is taking place and other in which not taking place can be selected on the basis of blue or white clonase. Okay, because the product of LAC-Z gene act on the X-Gal and then convert it into its product which is blue in color. So once the blue color clones are there, it means those proteins have some kind of interaction between them. If they are not interacting, then the white clones will be there. So if, as I have told you that we know the X, we know its sequence. If we do not know the sequence of Y, but once it get interacted and resulting in the blue color clones, we can isolate the plasmids from the cell and we can sequence that Y gene. Okay, So here is a variant of these two hybrid system, is three hybrid system. Here along with the X and Y protein carrying the DBD and AD domain, another protein Z, it is associated with the nuclear localization sequences. It carries no domain. Okay, however it is required for bringing the X and Y together. So this Z may first combine with the X to form a domain for binding of the Y, or it may act as the bridge between the X and Y proteins carrying the BD and AD domain. In both the cases, this will activate the RNA polymerase and bring about the expression of the reporter genes. So this Y2H model, generally it is used to determine whether two proteins they interact with one another or not. As I have told you, it can be studied on the basis of the phenotypic characteristics of the yeast colonies, and it is also used to identify the unknown proteins encoded by the cDNA library that interact with the protein of interest. Okay, moreover, if there is mutation in the gene, that can also be studied, because if the normal gene product is interacting with the bait, and if it is not interacting with the bait after the mutation, then mutation can be studied, okay, in that gene. So there are certain advantages of this yeast-2 hybrid screening. As I told you in the starting of this lecture, that here the protein purification is not necessary, no antibodies are required, just a single cDNA is required, which is easily available. However, the transient interaction can be detected, which is not in the conventional methods. Interactions are directly detected in vivo. There is no need of carrying out in vitro studies. So it is the cost-effective technique. Okay. So only a single plasmid construction is required to study the protein-protein interaction. However, the yeast technique is associated with some kind of disadvantages. So there are certain limitation of this technique. Basically, it is limited to those proteins which are stable in yeast cell, because sometime after entering into the yeast, if the protein is not able to assume the three-dimensional structure, then the interaction cannot be studied. Sometimes the proteins get activated after undergoing some post-translational modifications like glycosylation, phosphorylation, or ubiquitination, which if these are not carried out in the yeast, then again activity cannot be studied. Okay, so these protein interaction generally required the localization in the nucleus. If protein is not able to localize in nucleus, again the interaction cannot be studied. Sometimes the proteins or the gene products may get prove toxic to the yeast cell, like cyclines, or they fail to continue its activity in yeast cell. So there are the certain limitations of this technique also. So thanks, it is all about our presentation.